Hey, how's it going? Welcome to your cinema club. It's me, Steve. I'm your host today, and guess who's here with me? Is people like Michaela and JP and Dino and Jason Eccles. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite movies of all time, Enter the Dragon. Why did I pick this movie? Because this was the last movie that Bruce Lee finished before he was dying. Not dying, dead, like passed away. And also this is a movie where there's a lot of elements and a lot of the story of the movie that has been copied over centuries and centuries and centuries in so many different aspects of cinema and other things. And yeah, and I think this movie also, one of the elements that I like about this movie is the fact that it tells so much with so little dialogue, with a lot of staring and a lot of you get a lot with this movie. But anywho, I want to know your initial thoughts, and I want to start with a female perspective. So, Michaela, what did you think about this testosterone-filled movie?
I mean, it's like I grew up watching like James Bond. Like that was like my dad's favorite thing. Um, so it kind of reminded like the testosterone aspects of it. It's very much in that vein where it's like you don't really care about the morality. It's a fun movie to watch, and like it really like the cinematography is so gorgeous. Like the way that they actually use color, it's hard to believe that's a '70s movie because everything is just so bright and like a part of everything. I really had fun watching this one.
JP.
It was weird because like I've never seen. This is my first time watching the film. I don't think I've ever seen any of Bruce Lee's work before. So it's kind of sad knowing that this was one of his last pictures before he passed away. But like it's definitely out there. I honestly didn't expect to. I thought I was under the assumption that this was made in Hong Kong, like by the Hong Kong cinema, but it's apparently it's a Chinese and an American production, so there are a few Americans and a few Europeans in the film, and there's even some. I don't want to say terrible dubbing; it's tolerable dubbing, but it's definitely like it's not off-putting. It's not off-putting, but it is noticeable. But like it was a fun, quirky movie at times. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of hard to follow what was going on, but it was simple enough. I was like, okay, well, the plot of the movie is this, and just fucking roll with it. It's fun, it's quirky, it's silly. It's I don't know, like yeah, like Michaela said, it's definitely the definition of like a '70s movie, and like yeah, it was definitely like it was interesting to say the least. But like, no, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, as kind of mixed feelings on the film I did end up digging it. So I enjoyed the picture actually. Yeah.
Alrighty, Dino.
So, can you dig it? No, that's a different movie. Uh, I don't know if I ever watched this movie before. I like it for it being like a Bruce Lee movie, but like watching it now, oh, what a rough beginning and like the plot. Like I'm glad Michaela said it, like the James Bond thing, because watching the setup for the plot and all that, I was like, oh my god, this is like a kind of a Bond movie, like, but like so much, and like it was. Yeah, it reminded me even a little bit of Dolomite, of just like really bad like writing. But again, it's Bruce Lee. It's the '70s, kind of like what you guys said before, that it's been. Steve said that it's been copied over and over again. It's like, so yeah, clearly watching it now, it just feels, stale in that sense. But yeah, just watching Bruce Lee doing his thing and like enjoying it for like the colors and the silliness and all that. But yeah, the plot, dialogue, like it was just like all over the place. But I enjoyed it for Bruce Lee. But other than that, it's just, you know, it's Bruce Lee. That's about it. But I still recommend it for people to watch it. But I don't want to go into the things that I was just losing my mind over because I'm sure we'll jump into it. But yeah, that's my kind of first impression of the film.
Alrighty, and Jason, what are your initial thoughts?
Well, I'm actually surprised that JP and Dino hadn't seen this film before. It's a little shocking to me. But my first impression of this movie was like a brand new impression. I've seen this movie a ton of times. This is, I think, maybe the first Bruce Lee movie I ever saw. And it felt like a really new movie. Now, I've never felt like it felt like a new movie before. It's changed in my own perspective where I get that feeling now. Now the movie, it always kind of felt like a Bond film where we're trying to emulate like that Bond style. And it always before felt like it was a little bit exploitative. Maybe just because it was 70s and, you know, action and, you know, the main thing people were like, they're just trying to make a kung fu flick. But this is a little bit more than a kung fu flick. And I'll probably explain that, my feeling about that a little bit later with some of the things. But I like this movie a lot more now, you know, and I didn't think I would because it was always kind of like, it wasn't my favorite Bruce Lee film, but it's a better movie for some reason, because it's really thoughtful in a lot of ways that I hadn't considered before. Like this movie actually has a conscience, and I'll explain that a little bit later with you know, Jim Kelly's contribution and even Bruce Lee's contribution. I do take umbrage with Dino's take about the dialogue, because there's a couple lines in this movie that are some of the greatest quotes in movie history. Now, some of the dialogue
There's a difference between amazing lines and like overall dialogue. But anyway, go on.
It was
Good
straight
thing
out
we're
of
not in
the
the same room right now.
Yeah, that's a point. That's a point. That's an opinion. But you know, when you consider someone writing a script, I feel like you got to take the whole thing into perspective. And for someone to invent something that is like widely considered one of the greatest lines in movie history, you know, you might be able to throw a lot of the things you don't like away with that contribution. The dialogue didn't really bother me too much. You know, I accept it for the time and what the movie was, and you know, like why it was written. So for certain parts to make it into the movie at all, I mean, for an action movie in the 70s, during that time, to kind of have some of the philosophy, you know, that Bruce Lee put into play very early on in the movie, and it's actually classic screenwriting in this movie. You know, there's all the Joseph Campbell characters, you know, archetypes, but then there's also like the movie meets bookends, and it foreshadows, and it does all that like right on par, which is probably the reason that this movie holds up and didn't like fall into like, you know, the kung fu bin, the cheap kung fu bin at your local video store. This one's different. And I'll say this before I let Steve get started. Bruce Lee is one of the coolest motherfuckers that has ever lived on planet Earth. He has like this cool factor that's just like this sense of confidence, and it's on total display in this movie. And it's just the smirks and the mugging for the camera a little bit. It's beautiful. But yeah, we'll get into all that. Thanks, Steve.
Alrighty. I want to say this. So I actually watched this movie about 2.5 times before this meeting. And the reason I had to watch it 2.5 times is because, like Jason, the more I was uncovering stuff about the movie, the more I appreciate this movie even more. Because we gotta also think about the times. This was the 70s. Bruce was early 30s, right? He died at age 32, if I believe. And during that time, the 70s were a little bit more progressive, but they weren't as progressive as you might think. And this was the first time there's a film that is being backed by Hollywood and also China. And because of that, Hollywood really didn't want to have a Chinese guy be the lead guy because they think he can't sell tickets. So that's the reason we introduced the character of the white guy and also the black guy, in order to have like different people identified. There's a documentary that's actually on Netflix too, that's about the history of Kung Fu and how it's has evolved and stuff, and it touches stuff about this particular film. And they said that basically this film got released first in China, and then a month later, which after Bruce Lee died, a month later, it got released in Los Angeles in the United States.
Yeah.
And when this before this movie got released, this movie did not have the beginning scene that you see as the cold open. All that was actually written, directed by Bruce Lee. And he added that part in the beginning of the film just to make sure that you know and establishes that he's the guy in this film. Because literally, if you just watch the opening credits, you might think that the lead guy is someone else. And yeah, and even that to me was so impressive that I'm like, I need to rewatch that beginning scene. And to me, that beginning scene is so powerful. Like it's true, like there's so many things just from that beginning scene that you can extrapolate from this movie. But I want to know from you guys, what was like one of the moments that really stood out to you from this movie? Anybody can go.
Um, you know, the monologue that Bruce has, there's two moments really, but the monologue that Bruce has in the very beginning when he's teaching his student, like that is so philosophical. He's teaching him how to fight, but really he's teaching him a way of life. The whole monologue about you know, when you look at the moon, when you point at the moon, look at the moon. Don't look at your finger, or else you'll miss all of its heavenly glory. Like that right there, it's beautiful. It's like keep your eye on the target. It's what you do in fighting, but also in life. Like, don't be distracted by the thing. Focus on what you're supposed to be looking at, the heavenly glory, like life itself for what it is. It's so good. It's I don't know if that's Bruce Lee's philosophy or if that's some ancient Shaolin monk stuff, but it's amazing. And it really, that's the part that like it makes you listen to everything Bruce Lee says as the movie continues. Everything he does, you want to focus on that. Something I hadn't noticed from the movie in all my previous viewings, and maybe that's because of this past year with so much like consciousness and civil unrest happening in America. It's Jim Kelly's contribution. Jim Kelly was a black exploitation star. He did a lot of kung fu movies and a lot of like grindhouse cinema stuff. But in the movie, he looks at the poor Chinese boat neighborhood, and he says, there's like, he goes, it's a ghetto. He goes, and just like every ghetto in America, or just like every ghetto in the world, it stinks. And right there, it's like, man, this dude is focusing on the little guy. He's focusing on all the poor people in the community. Like when he's about to go fight for his life on an island, he's focused on all the inequality in the world that he notices, and they kind of take a moment to like sit on that in the film. And I hadn't really noticed that before, which is, pretty dope. I mean, I heard it, I remembered it, but I hadn't really like, it never set in. And that was 1973. So that's a part of the movie that I really like at this stage of my life. That stands out to me.
No, no, that I think was one of the, like, seeing those moments, especially in like the 70s. It's almost like you could tell what Bruce Lee wanted to say himself, which I think that's probably part of it as well, and then what the studio wanted to throw in. That's the only reason why I was given like dialogue shit and stuff like that, because they were bringing like, oh, I don't want to drink the water, I don't know what's in the water, or they were bringing all the different little bit of xenophobia and just like the food's bad, all that kind of stuff. That was my only thing, just looking at it, and you kind of have to laugh. But yeah, there were lines like that. I mean, he beats up two cops Like, how badass is that?
Super
Like-
badass. I was
like
like,
he-
man, and then he drives off in their car. I was like, that's so like in Black America, people were probably cheering in the aisles when they saw that.
God. That's like
That was
what?
73.
It's like not only that, it's like, yeah, he's at night walking in an alley and out of nowhere this cop shows up and then they're like hassling him. They got his name at that point. He's just like, and then he's like, and drives off. I'm like, that's so badass. Like, I wish I would have been able to also see like a movie just of him because he's such a strong character and he's like not even one of the two main guys, right? But then it's almost like when the bad dude's like, who, you were out, and he's like, it wasn't me, man. There was someone else out there.
They blame the black guy, right?
Yeah, and there's like, you're gonna tell me, and he's almost like, he's like, I'm not gonna tell. It's like it's not like he knew or was friends with Bruce Lee or anything, but he's just like, I'm minding my own business, like, like.
And then he delivers one of the best lines in movie history.
Yeah.
Man, you're straight out of a comic book. That would work in any movie today. Any Fast and the Furious movie said that. People would be like, that's dope. Everybody would start saying it.
You know what? I was thinking when Steve was talking about just like how the cast and all that, I was like, this was like the first Fast and the Furious. Like, Chinese guy, black dude, white dude. Like, and then they're all kind of, two of them know each other, but they all kind of work together. They and almost kind of like you can think like the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? They're not all perfect good guys, but they have like a moral code above everything else, right? But the stuff that I was having issues with is just like the dad stuff, like all this extra, like, let me give you all this background. It's like they had to pad this film at times because then I'm like, okay, so some organization wants him to go and infiltrate. Perfect. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. His master tells him like he has, defaced or brought shame to our dojo, or and I'm like, okay, that's all I need. That's already two reasons to go to this island or to go kick Han's ass, right? And then the dad's like, hey, by the way, let me tell you what happened. Me and your sister. And then the dad gets beat up and we see this flashback of the sister. And then she, like, spoilers, but I'm like, the dad didn't see the sister killing herself. Who's to know that she didn't get killed by the guy, right? Like, we're just taking the dad's word of like, your sister didn't want to get beat up or probably raped, which is what I thought where it was going. So she took her life, which is pretty badass. But again, I was just like, what does this have? And so I thought there was going to be a bigger reaction with the fight with the guy with Scar. And then it was like nothing. So a lot of like the setup from the beginning was just like, nope, we just like gonna keep on going. But like the individual characters and like individual lines or monologues were pretty great. And things that movies that have copied that whole idea, even like Mortal Kombat or whatever the game and stuff like that, have definitely not got a part in their movies, right? That small points of social awareness. Because the sister was badass. She was like kicking people and people are just like appearing. I was like, I thought it was only 4 of them. And I was like, is that 8? Is that 10? Man, they keep on going. Anyway, point being, someone else can.
No, like I have to agree with Dino on this because it's like I actually thought that one shot of her with the glass shard and like you see like the stark blue, like I thought that was like such an iconic image. Like if I was like someone who could like actually draw or paint, like I'd want to paint that image. But like it really, I don't know. I feel like Bruce had so many ideas that he just wanted to shove into this film that it just came, because I had the same kind of issues Dino did, where it's like with the plot where it wasn't as tight as it could have been. But like at the same time, I don't think that you watch this, like you don't grab this film to like get like the people who use this as influences, they didn't watch this in their like 20s and stuff being like, okay, I am philosophically enlightened, but they grabbed it when they were 9 years old because it was badass.
Yeah.
You know, and then they extrapolated on more. Like it has such a watchability, and that's what makes it so influential. You know, like it's fun to watch. But like I agree with like the whole plot thing. It's just I think he just had so many things he wanted to say, but he just couldn't stick it into his hour, 2 hours.
Well, that's, I mean, Steve kind of brought it up, right? That it was a co-production or whatever, and you have Hollywood. I mean, that was one of the, like, the things Bruce Lee had to fight nonstop, right? To try and, like, get his vision, his stuff in Hollywood, where they were pushing him to the side, always, you know. So I can totally understand of him just constantly struggling with both ends, right? The Chinese studios and the American. He's like, I just want to do some kick-ass films, and they're both just like fighting with him. You know, that was something that, from seeing different things about him and stuff like that beforehand, that he always had to struggle, right? Especially in white America, where they're just, you know, like they. So I understand that some of it was him, and then a lot of it is a studio. Like, you gotta have this, you gotta have that, you know. So, but yeah, it's a fun movie because you can look back and yeah, there's so many silly moments in it as well that I'm just like, this is great.
For sure. Oh, I don't know. Like, what was the question again? Like, standout scene or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it was weird because like there's a lot of weird effing scenes, but the one that I absolutely dig the most, and it's so fucking simple because like I felt like I got to understand Bruce Lee's character a lot better in this scene, was literally like they're on the boat to go to the fucking Jeffrey Epstein Island, right? And like they're on their way, and then you see this Irish looking motherfucker like just kicking the people on the boat, like the fucking like the other like Chinese natives, and it's like, what the fuck? This guy's a goddamn asshole. Why don't they kick him off the boat? And then Bruce Lee, he tells like, oh, I'm in the art of fighting, not fighting. And I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? He's like, oh, I'll show you on this fucking island. Let's go there. And he lets the guy on the fucking dinghy, and he just like lets go of the rope. And it's like, that's right. Fuck that asshole. And then you realize like that's Bruce Lee's character. He's like he sticks it up for the little guy, you know. It's like he's not a fucking villain, and he's not gonna like hurt or kill for pleasure. I mean, he ends up murdering for vengeance, but you know, at least there's purpose in that and nothing too selfish, because it's for, you know, his family. But like you gotta and it's such a playful little scene, and you know he's just smiling, laughing, and everyone is having a good old time, and this fucking asshole is like drowning in this little dinghy. Like it was I dig that scene. It's so simple and so it's childish. It's a very childish moment. But that was the one that stuck out to me the most. It was like, yeah, like you kind of get his motivation is like, you know, sure, he's there at the whim of this agency saying like gather evidence, and he's mostly there to avenge his family. But you know, you get who he is in that moment. Like he's just a genuinely good person, and you know, you realize at that moment, like, yeah, he's the real true fucking hero. Because everybody else, you know, like, you know, like especially the American guy, like it's all about fucking debts and gambling and shit.
Yeah.
Like just betting all the time and whatever. And then like Williams, Jim Kelly's character, like just cool. He's suave. He's fucking like he's a badass, and he wants everyone to know. But but Bruce Lee is like, no, he's genuine, kind, and he'll kick your ass if provoked, you know.
To me, like one standout scene, and this happened like the last time I was watching it, 'cause I told you I watched it like almost 3 times, was in the boat scene with the white dude. The amount of luggages he was bringing into the island was just ridiculous. And then the following scene where they actually are getting off the island, they're having a dialogue scene. But if you look at the background, you see people carrying just all of his luggage in the background.
He
And
had to
that
stay
was,
fresh.
oh my God, that had me dead.
Well, I don't. Did you not notice like him in the rickshaw at the very beginning? There's like 4 rickshaws following him, and they're all filled with his suitcases. So it was like an ongoing thing, of just. And then you never really see. I'm like, what? I was.
Yeah.
I
And
was
then
wait.
for the whole time.
I was waiting for him to open up, and it's all this different, like I don't know, facial
I
cream and just
I
yeah.
I think they were all empty and they were just for his beddings.
Yeah.
Whenever he wanted to fill those suitcases up.
And maybe it's
No, but
everything he in severe debt. He didn't want anyone to like take his stuff.
Oh, that's true.
I think it's
I-
everything he owned because he was on the run for those mobsters in America and he had to get out. So he's like, wherever I lay my head is my new home abroad because I got to be away now.
I also think there's a lot of footage from this film that never got released, just got cut.
Probably, yeah.
Definitely.
So he died before it was edited, I would imagine. So who had the final edit on this film?
Well, they released it in China. I think was he alive during the China release? I think
He was not around for the premiere.
but that was in America.
Or both?
He may have been around for the Chinese premiere.
Anyway, it would just be interesting because it's like, yeah, there's the whole golf scene also. Actually, there were just a whole lot of just like, it reminded me, man, yeah, as a kid or whatever, with a camcorder, oh yeah, let's film this. This is gonna be tight. Like, and that's why I enjoy it. It's this kind of like there are a lot of passionate moments in the film that you could tell that was like definitely like them trying to be artistic and tell a story. And then you can see kind of like what the studios wanted to be put in, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the thing is if they were 100% behind Bruce Lee, this would have
Yeah.
been an entirely different movie because they wouldn't have like butt in certain stories,
right.
because now they gotta justify why this white guy is here and they gotta justify. So it takes a lot of moments from
Right.
the movie and it takes a lot of time.
Um,
Because literally
I enjoy-
they didn't realize Bruce Lee was an actual star until he died, and
Oh, yeah.
they premiered this film, and this film literally broke like crazy records, and up to this day is the biggest grossing kung fu movie of all time.
don't think it is anymore, but I'll take your word for it. But
Check it out.
think
I
it's
checked it
been
out. I checked it
surpassed.
out. I checked it out before the meeting. So
More so.
I just looked at the numbers on it. The box office is 350 million worldwide. I can't think of a kung fu movie that would have a higher box office than that.
Kung Fu Hustle,
I don't think so, man.
Shaolin Soccer.
No.
One of those.
Kung
One
Fu?
of those.
Ooh, Panda.
Anyway,
Kung Fu Hustle didn't break 100 million. I'm sure of it.
what I also enjoyed, what made me happy, what took me back to like Little Dino, was seeing the one Asian bad guy. So like, not only does Han have this bodyguard who sucks ass at the end, right? Like I was like, I was expecting a much harder fight,
Yes.
but then it's I think he
Bolo?
might- yeah. Oh my god, was in every like Van Damme movie. Like he was like always the bad guy in Van Damme movies, and maybe even Seagal, and and just seeing him like took me back to Paraguay when I was little, going to the video club store and like picking out bad kung fu movies, and he was in all of them. He's probably that guy alone is probably in like 300 action films as the same bad guy. I'm pretty sure like there's a Marvel universe, I think that one guy is like the connecting dot to like the universe of all the different kung fu films. I think like he connects everything. Um, Going back, this I was thinking of this when I was watching of my issues with the plot or things being dropped or brought up or whatever, and I'm like, it's the '70s, as Bruce Lee dealing with studios and all this crazy shit. You know, like he died shortly after, so maybe they re-edited all this other stuff. I'm like, totally cool. But then you have something like Wonder Woman that's a hot mess. And I'm like, that's inexcusable. Like I can understand a movie from the '70s where there's racial issues going between the studio and the actors and all that. But Wonder Woman, like next to I'm like, there's no excuse. There's no way Wonder Woman should have come out how it did. Like it's 2021 for Pete's sake. Like
I thought it was
get your shit
1994.
get your shit together, Warner Brothers, Patty Jenkins, DC, Gal Gadot. Like, yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen for that one, and it shouldn't have happened. So go see this movie and not Wonder Woman '84 is what I have to say about that.
Well, thank you, Dino, for your final
We just
thoughts on Wonder
Talk
Woman.
for a second. I mean, because
Can,
we're
but
talking
you're
about
breaking up.
superhero flicks, can we just talk? Oh,
Okay,
What just happened?
there you go. Go on.
can we just say that, like, because we're talking about superhero flicks, like Bruce Lee is a straight up superhero in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
he's barely touched. Like, this guy needs Han needed a super long hand claw to even touch him. Like, it's unreal. It's unreal how good he is. And I remember watching a documentary where they talk about how when they're shooting him, they have to slow down the frames to even catch what he's doing on camera. Like, the camera couldn't register his speed, which is insane if you think about it, right? Like, a film camera couldn't register how fast this human was moving within the frame, right? And he is kind of a superhero. And something that's a little distressing about like Bruce Lee and this movie and like his trajectory in life and Earth in general is Bruce Lee was the first and probably still only international Asian sex symbol we've ever had. Like straight up movie star sex symbol. Like we might have one now with maybe the guy from Crazy Rich Asians, but he's not
Tiger
a household
Woods.
name. I don't even know that guy's name.
Dr. Ken?
No, there's just not one, right? Like
Tiger
Bruce Lee
Woods.
was no, not Tiger Woods is not a international Asian sex symbol. No one says, ooh, that's whatever. But Bruce Lee was that one. Bruce Lee was that guy. And here's the sad part. There hasn't been one since. And that was 73. In 47 years, there's been one Asian mega international superstar sex symbol.
Okay, yeah, the sex symbol. But you do have Jackie Chan.
International movie star, not sex symbol.
Actually, did you guys notice Jackie Chan in this movie? He's actually in this movie.
Yeah, he's in the background. He's in the
A second. I didn't even see him.
No, you see him get punched in one of the frames. It's very quick.
He gets killed in this movie.
Yeah. Is this a one where, because that's the other thing, Bruce Lee would hold back punches and kicks and was still too fast, right? But in one of them, I think Jackie Chan, if I'm not mistaken, like ate it bad. Like Bruce Lee,
this movie.
Like, this is the one, right, where you like knocked Jackie Chan, knocked him out or whatever.
Yeah, he's one of the guys in the big fight scene.
I think it's also great of just because Jackie Chan kind of like took over there for a long time. And Jackie Chan talking about Bruce Lee and just about the idea, like when Bruce Lee died, there was this huge vacuum and just like everyone was trying to be the next Bruce Lee. And Jackie Chan was like, there's never going to be another Bruce Lee. It's like, and he was like, I got to find what makes me unique, and that's where he brought in a comedy, right? Like he was like, because Jackie Chan could fight like pretty close up there with Bruce Lee for sure, but he brought in that whole, and you can kind of even say like, oh yeah, Bruce Lee had a little of that like smiling and kind of playing with the camera and stuff like that. Because there were a couple moments where I was like, oh my god, I feel like Jackie Chan does like when you get hit and you're like the Jackie Chan of getting hit and showing that that hurts type of thing, right? Like overreacting to shots. And I feel like I saw a couple times in this movie where that happened, and I was like, okay, Jackie Chan took that and made that bigger, right? Let's take the comedy and make that bigger. So I just, there's no one else like Bruce Lee. Yeah, and in one of it, when he like rips his thing, I was like, there's so many still pictures and all that, but like seeing the the footage and raw, I'm just like, damn, Bruce Lee's ripped. Like it's like I know what Bruce Lee looks like. It's always without a shirt, but seeing it in action, I was just like, ah, damn, I'm getting the, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, Bruce Lee was definitely a model for physical fitness, to be sure.
So I would like to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's what JP talked about, the Epstein Island situation.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because for a movie in the 70s, talking about a guy that's doing a bunch of corruption, from opium to injecting people with heroin to trafficking women and killing them and just throwing them in the harbor. By the way, there's nothing unusual about a body in the harbor. That was one of the lines that in the movie that I'm like, oh, for real? Okay.
Well, that's why I'm glad that Bruce Lee reacted to the guy hitting and punching the guys on the boat. That it started there, because I'm like, is no one gonna say anything? See something, say something, right? I was like, are we just gonna allow that to happen, or So, I feel. I feel like that was kind of overshadowed there for a moment, even in the island. Like it was brought up as a huge thing, but then you just assume that they all got out. There's the one psychedelic room where Jim Kelly, he gets beat up in the psychedelic room.
Oh, with all the ladies with the face tattoos and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just, I thought that was a super dope idea to have a fight scene in a psychedelic room. I was like, I mean, because you always need like a cool backdrop for a fight scene. Like every movie should have one. And I thought for this movie, they had a couple. They had that room, and they had, I mean, obviously the tournament's cool. I don't know if we had ever seen that in a movie before, but then, the mirror room too.
The mirror room is one of the most, like, such iconic, just.
It's been parodied a billion times.
Just such a great finish to for a fight scene location,
and it's complex, isn't it? Like to film it is complex. All those mirrors, and there's no camera. You don't see any camera.
I think it took like several days or several weeks or something like that to construct and then to like actually film.
I mean, you can just use CGI to erase the camera from the mirror, right? I feel like that.
Yeah, it's like a magic trick.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to film that for any amount of money. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think you would.
And all that broken.
I would try it.
Yeah. I was like,
for any amount of money.
You would. Yeah. How much money are we talking about?
So nobody's gonna talk about the Epstein thing?
The island in itself?
We were talking about it, I thought.
The island, like, what do you want to know about the island? It's a bad proposition, to be sure, but it's almost like
was this based in reality, or was this?
Oh no, I'm sure there's always been like mega rich, corrupt billionaires who have had islands. People own islands, and they own them for reasons.
And cats, apparently.
It was It was very weird and uncanny though, like how like similarities between the two, where it actually made me low key uncomfortable while watching. It was like, wow, did they predict this, or was this always a thing? Like I kept on referring as Han as like oh well, there's Epstein right there, and he even had his own Ghislaine Maxwell with him too. It's like, whoa, he's got himself a Maxwell. That's
Well,
wow, bro.
remember if you watched a lot of action movies, like in the 80s especially, the island of bad guys is a trope. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger went on a few islands to beat up bad guys. It's just it's an action movie trope. I don't know if this was the first movie to do it.
And guess who's also taken that? All these Marvel and comic movies have done it. You know,
X-Men
especially like DC as a way of like, oh, we don't want to hurt civilians. So what was it, Batman v Superman? Like they're on this like deserted island, so we can go there and fuck some shit up and nothing will happen.
Instead of killing millions of like Metropolis citizens.
And they even explained that at first, like, yeah, it's an island that after the war just kind of like it went back and forth and no one really, you know, and he just bought it. Like, okay, cool. So we're not giving him a country, which is great, right? Let's just have evil rich dude do evil.
The island of Dr. Monroe.
Yeah.
There was in a Max Fleischer Superman cartoon, one of the first ones, he had to go fight an evil scientist on an island. It's just a bad guy. It's a perfect bad guy headquarters.
James Bond, the first one, Dr. No, he was on an island. So yeah, that's the easiest thing, right?
You know, but it's a problem solver. Like this movie, right from the jump, in the first like 10, 15 minutes, it kind of gets rid of all the things that the audience would be thinking. Like, all right, they're on an island, so there's no authority, right? But what about guns? Well, it's kind of in a weird threshold on a line where there wouldn't be any guns because it's all illegal. And if there were guns, we would have to get in there right away. So he's too smart.
No. It wasn't even that. It was they said Han had an incident with a gun.
Yeah.
And he does. So I imagine it's his hand. I want to.
That was the second thing. That was the second thing that they said.
I thought it was first like he didn't like guns, so he didn't want guns.
They said it was in international waters that were owned by another. That was monitored by their organization. So they couldn't have guns because there's no guns in that part of Central Asia. And then they go into that, but they kept layering it and stacking it just to explain to the audience, like, you know, here are the rules. There can't be any guns. These are the bad guys. Here's why. And, you know, all that kind of stuff. We can pin stuff on them, but we don't have any, like, they just kind of break it down so that, you know, there's none of that. But wait a minute, why didn't they just, you know, there's none of that because they exit out right away. That's what you do like in the second draft of a screenplay.
There's a whole lot of that, but it didn't matter because it's such a kick-ass. One of my favorite scenes, all right, I've even kind of done my final thing or whatever. He throws that snake inside the little radio booth and they freak out and throw a chair through the glass and run out instead of like, who threw the snake? Like it was like that to me, just like scream 1970s action film.
Not only that, but if you actually look back at that specific scene, because again, I watched the movie like 3 times before this conversation. When Bruce Lee opens the door, the guy is looking at Bruce Lee opening the door.
And he wasn't even being sneaky about it. He was very aggressive. Like, you guys know that there was a guy who threw the snake, right?
Yeah, I was waiting. I was like, okay, they're gonna wait for the guy to look up or over to the guy with the headphones. I was like, no, he's literally looking down when the door opens at Bruce Lee.
Oh, so how did Bruce Lee? We glossed it over, but I want to bring it up again. How did Noah? Like, I know that Williams, Jim Kelly's character, he was no snitch, so he wasn't gonna say that it wasn't him, right? Last night, but how did none of the guards who survived that? How could they not tell that was fucking Bruce Lee?
Do you know what happens if you get concussed sometimes? Like CTE, Like he was knocking bitches out in one hit. So I mean,
disguise.
the few people that actually saw him, were knocked out. So they aren't gonna remember.
All I could recall was darkness, and they pointed to Williams. Okay.
Also, I like when we're talking about great lines, and this is what I'm talking about of like a setup, but no like resolution. Is when like Bruce Lee's getting ready and it's like, you gotta wear the uniform, and he like looks and keeps walking, and the very next shot is the guy is like, why are you not wearing the uniform? And he just looks at it, and then the guy just walks. Like I'm like, I thought that there was gonna be a fight. I was like, I'm waiting for a fight because he won't wear the freaking uniform, and instead it's just like, okay.
What are you gonna do? Ask that dude to wear a uniform and then die about it?
Yes.
Like he gave him a death look. He was like, I will whoop your ass, old man.
There are 500 extras that are just waiting to die.
He almost killed all of them by himself.
Yeah, he did.
Yo, now that we're talking,
Shanghai drunk guys. That was crazy.
He killed 400 people in this movie with his hands.
Who killed the white lady?
Oh, Ghislaine Maxwell? Who knows?
Yeah.
Just a casualty of war, man.
there's
I
a
know,
bomb.
because this is what, right, of not talking, there was emotional depth and acting, because she was like very much on that verge of like, oh, this is going wrong, or like, I like him, and you know what I mean? Like you could tell that she was very much, like, not happy with her life choices before the final showdown.
I thought if anyone was gonna take her out, it would have been the Roper character, because I could tell that they had some feelings for each other. Yeah, that is kind of a shitty way. Like in one shot she's panicking, and then by the end of the movie it's like, oh, she fucking died, but we don't know why. That's kind of lame. That's pretty lame.
Also, his first claw, like, why was it hairy? Do we need it to be hairy? Is that a thing that I'm missing from like Kung Fu history, martial arts? Is like a 3-claw with just, let's have cat hair on it.
I just also love that his stump is also articulated. So that was...
Anyway, I love the movie, and people should watch it. And Bruce Lee, like, he was onto some real good shit there, and if only he would have been backed by. If only the Asian community didn't have to wait until Crazy Rich Asians to realize that you could have an Asian superstar, because
You know what I kind of hate though? I kind of miss that we didn't get to see Bruce Lee like alive now, like all the stuff he would have did. He may have fell into like the cheesy movie section at some point, or he would have been running with like Schwarzenegger and all those guys in the 80s for sure.
Tarantino would have brought him into one of his.
I've often thought about that. Maybe I've mentioned that to you, but if Bruce Lee would have ever phased into like, some kind of obscurity, Tarantino would have resurrected him for sure.
Yeah.
And that Bruce Lee in a Tarantino movie, my God, like with gray hair, maybe like a handlebar mustache or something, man.
Or like what's the Untouchables, Unbreakables,
The Hateful Eight.
That one thing where they got all the action heroes together.
Yeah.
Oh, Expendables.
Yeah, Expendables, right? Like he would have.
Man, as a little kid, I don't think I've actually watched one all the way through. But as a little kid, that was like my dream. I was just like, you need Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Seagal, like all of those. Just like, let's put them all in one movie. Like, how great would that be? Yet I haven't seen any of the ones that they made now.
Pretty fun.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Well, because the TV show Kung Fu, what is it, Carradine or whatever? Mm-hmm. That was Jet Li. That was Bruce Lee. That was a Bruce Lee show that he pitched, and they were like, "Yeah, no, we're not gonna do it." And then they went and got a white guy to play the kung fu master that goes around, you know, so around West with, you know, going around with peace. So it sucks that all that was happened to him, and he wasn't fully able to, you know, accomplish at 100%, right?
What he should have.
It's like having a Ferrari but only being able to use 2 gears.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can't go above second gear in a Ferrari. Just, you know, a shame. All right. Probably
No,
head out.
that was your final thought? Just the Ferrari with 2 gears?
I think so, man. I mean, think about it. He's a freaking superhero. Like, no cape needed. Like his superhero, like, you know, Superman has to take the glasses off and takes something off, and he has his, you know, Superman on his chest. Wonder Woman in the old one like spins around really fast and is in her outfit. Bruce Lee is like just ripping off my shirt. There you go. That's my superhero pose. Like me without a shirt. Like pre-Hulk Hogan ripping off his shirt. Like Bruce Lee was like, "You want to see true badass? Let me take my shirt off real quick and wear some skinny pants." Because, you know, he would have been rocking them skinny jeans today, and he would have been looking.
You know what?
too.
Can we talk about the fashion just for a second? Like, because I've never really paid attention to it before.
Bro. So this is another thing I want to say. By the way, every fight scene was actually choreographed by Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And everything Bruce Lee was wearing, that was him, baby. That was him. So
Absolutely.
He was trying to prove a purpose and send a message in this movie that he wanted to do things his way. But the things that were blocking him, again, were the studios and all this stuff of like a Chinese man cannot be a leading man and all this shit.
Yeah.
Can
we talk about how
go
good
for it.
Bruce looked in that suit when he went to his sister's grave? Like, that thing was cut to perfection. It had the 70s weird little collar. Now, normally those 70s suits, when you go back and look at them sometimes in other movies, you're like, oh, it looks cheesy. It's polyester. You're not really fucking with it. But in this movie, Bruce's suit, even though it's clearly a 70s suit, it's like, man, he looks sharp.
And they were bell bottoms too.
And they were bell bottoms. It looked so good on him.
It did.
And the spy suit that he was wearing, the blue jumper or whatever.
Yeah.
No one ever wears that as a Bruce Lee costume, but it's good. The jumper with the little knapsack or whatever. That's so dope. He made everything look good.
Again, I just want to see more of Jim Kelly's story. Like, I hope someone does like a current movie of like, what was he doing before, right? Like,
Jim Kelly. It's kind of Jim Kelly has a bunch of movies.
Right, I know, but I'm saying that character because I love this is again a dialogue thing. Gets on the boat. Oh hey, I haven't seen you since Nam. Like those kind of lines. I was dying.
That's my point. If you go back and watch any Jim Kelly movie, he's kind of the same character in every flick. So it's like it's pretty safe to assume like that is him coming from like he's beat up cops in other movies before too. So it's kind of like his thing.
That I love that so much, especially like I was.
It was disappointing that they fucking nerfed it.
It was.
I mean,
well, we never see him. He goes in the water, but I was like, "Where's the sharks with the lasers, right? Or the barracudas with the laser?" We didn't see that.
No, I heard like as I watched a little thing online. And it's weird, like it's online, so I have no idea how true this is. But supposedly, Saxon, John Saxon, that was that was the other guy, right?
Yeah.
Supposedly during the whole like figuring out the movie to Americanize this Chinese movie, supposedly his agent did not like the fact that they were gonna kill him first, so they ended up killing Williams instead. So I was like,
wow.
You see, yeah, I thought I was like, especially after like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and all that, I was like, oh, cool, they got another black dude with like a fro. Like, this is pretty cool. Probably someone that has more acting chops, and it's gonna be a team up. It's gonna be like pre-Rush Hour, right? Chinese and black dude kicking ass. And I was like, why is this white guy? And then the white guy has a black assistant lady that is like, how much do I have left in the bank? I was like, you keep it. And she's like, I think you're gonna need it. I was like, what are we watching? Like, he gets I was like, what golf course are you that you like walk over and it's this forest filled with bad guys?
And
Like,
not only that, but when we actually see the white dude fight kung fu, his technique is is the wackest out of everybody.
oh man, I love it. It's a great movie. I think it's great watching it with people. That's what I also realized, like, just these older kung fu movies. I spent a time watching with a buddy, watching like Jackie Chan movies, like two at a time, like a double feature of Jack. You know, like if you were to go to like a movie theater and they would be having, you know, multiple movies or whatever. And it's so much fun. It's like a great time of just like enjoying kick-ass fights with really silly dialogue in between at times. But some great dialogue gems in there.
For sure. So if nobody has anything else to say, we can jump into final thoughts. And I can start with Dino since Dino has to
Yeah.
run. Go for it.
I enjoyed it. Again, I think everything that we've pointed out, and even talking about it more, makes me like it even more. Like looking back at it, because you have the fashion, you have the fight scenes, the location, you know, like all that, like, and a lot of character building. So the more we talk about it and kind of discuss it, I like it more. So I would definitely recommend it for sure. Um, it's just all around fun movie.
Alrighty, let's go with Jason.
Final thoughts. I love this movie. It's amazing that it's actually gotten better to me. You know, usually I watch more movies and I go back and look at something and or something, especially something like this. But to me, it more than held up the test of time, and it also speaks to its time. So I think that's cool. Obviously, I would recommend this movie to anyone who's never seen Bruce Lee before. This is a great starting point. This is probably the starting point, even though it's his last film. For those who want to watch more Jim Kelly viewings, I recommend Three the Hard Way and Black Belt Jones. Black exploitation films or kung fu films, but they're pretty dope, all things considered. If you want to check out more of him, yeah. So definitely, I would recommend this one. One of the great kung fu flicks of all time. You know, just getting to see Bruce Lee in motion is a blessing and a treat.
Alrighty, Michaela, what are your final thoughts?
You know, this is a great Friday night movie. Like, that's all I have to say. Like, if you are in a group of people and you suggest this film and they say no, you don't have good friends.
Oh my god!
Like
that should be the tagline of the poster, man. Like that. Like,
that was insane.
right.
I wasn't expecting that.
well, am I wrong? Because I feel like
You're in the wrong group. Yeah.
yeah, no, like there's no like situation where I could see that being a bad choice, except for maybe like a Halloween party. But even then, like, I don't know. Yeah, no, like it's fun.
So wait, the Bolo guy, his name is actually Bolo Yang.
Yeah.
Oh, he changed
He
his
changed
name
it, right?
changed
Yeah,
his name after the movie. That became his stage name.
yeah. That's awesome.
Called marketing.
It's like how Bruce Lee's character is Lee.
JP, what are your final thoughts?
Oh man, like it's definitely an out there movie. There's a few things I didn't get to touch on because, like, to be quite honest, like you have to be really nitpicky and not like admire this like the type of like genre that this film is. Like my mind kind of like, okay, I get it now. As soon as the whole James Bond thing clicked, it was like, yeah, no, this is basically a James Bond movie. That's true. So like it's one of those things where like it's definitely like not my cup of tea, but like I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Like I did like it. It was funny. It had its funny moments, and like yes, the fighting is insane. And there's a few times where Bruce Lee is like he's so fucking quick and like he hits the air really high sometimes. And also Jim Kelly, where there's a few times where I could see some air in between, but there was a few moments where like I would not doubt that a few of these extras actually did get hit. Like I'm betting that there was a few injuries on set for sure. And you guys claimed that that even Jackie Chan ate some shit in this film. So like for sure, like it's one of those things like people should know like what this movie is, and it's and for what it is fun. And I am sad that that this was one of Bruce Lee's last film. I know that there was one that they try to make like literally it's from my understanding I want to call it a zombie because it's literally pieces of other films put into this one last film that they try to make for Bruce Lee, but I don't know that much of the history of it to even have an actual opinion on it. But no, it's as a first time watcher of Bruce Lee's stuff, it is very great. He's so expressive. He's so fun, and you could tell that he is having fun doing this, and this was what he loved. And you know, like it's a fun movie. Honestly, it was a fun movie.
Thank you for that, JP. So my final thought is this movie is a gem in history. And it's a great way for you to start getting more curious, especially about other cultures, I would say, because at least, I would have loved if this movie would have been more focused on the Bruce Lee character and not adding all these extra characters. But the fact that at least they layered it with African American and a Caucasian dude, then at least it gives a chance for especially boys, because in this case not girls, but like boys will feel identified with someone, whether it's the quest of Bruce Lee's character, et cetera, or the struggles of Jim Kelly and stuff like that. And it's a great film. I'll definitely recommend this film, and it's a great film also to just like. There's some people I like to put music videos in the background. This is a great movie to literally have on your background on mute and just running in your house because the visuals, the cinematography, so stunning, the colors, everything, the expression. There's even from this film, there's so many stills, specifically of Bruce, that got taken and made into posters and all sorts of banners and murals and all sorts of things. And yeah, and it's a piece of history. And just so you know, after this film actually got released and it became a worldwide success, it created such a huge void in the market now for Bruce Lee that then Bruce Lee exploitation films came. And there was literally people dressing up like Bruce Lee, making all sorts of parodies, literally just selling as much of Bruce as possible because the world wanted more Bruce. But Bruce was literally, his life got taken away or he was gone. We don't know. There's so many conspiracies about it. I don't want to enter into that territory right now. But this movie is remarkable. It's incredible. I love it. It's super fun. And it's definitely one that you can watch many times over and still discover little things and still enjoy it like almost the first time you watched it. So anywho, that's all for this particular movie. We are going to our next movie, which is actually JP's turn. So JP, what's going to be the movie for next week?
Oh boy, I wish I did my homework. Fuck! Okay, so after much consideration for like the past 5 minutes, my bad, guys. I was not prepared. There was one film that I wanted to watch, but it's not from my understanding, available at any streaming service right now. So the film we're gonna watch is an animated Western, and from my understanding, was the only animated film that Industrial Light and Magic, which was the Lucasfilm production company, ever made. It's the Nickelodeon movie Rango.
Rango.
Excellent choice. I've been wanting to watch that. So now I have a read. I was going to watch it over Christmas break. So here we are. Great.
I've actually never seen it. Seen the poster many times, but never seen it.
It won an Oscar, didn't it?
I believe so. Either for music or literally for animated feature.
I hope it'd be for the animation because they did such a good job.
Oh yeah, it's a shame that was the only animated movie
I know.
ever
Oh my
made.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
Dino,
All right,
by the way,
looking forward to it.
by the way, Dino just took off because he needed to jack off because he loves westerns.
Oh my god, stop.
He's like, oh, Westerns. I'm so erect right now. I gotta
Oh
go.
my god, westerns! What, animated? On top of that, what?
Illinois.
Yeah.
But for JP, Michaela, Jason, Dino, that's gone, and me, Steve, we'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye.
Hey there, I am Steve Des from Oye Dímelo Network. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please don't forget to subscribe and click any of the videos you see right there, because it will take you to a different path in your life.